Hey everyone, welcome back. Force here today talking a little bit more about Hytale. Now the last time we talked about this game, we were discussing the things they were doing to set themselves apart and be more than just Minecraft 2. This included things like their handcrafted prefab locations and points of interest, a zone system that offered biomes with a range of difficulty, and even endgame areas, having more of an RPG and character building focus, and a deep combat system with things like charge attacks, dashing, blocking, sneaking, and tons of weapons with their own unique attack patterns and playstyles. Hytale is really trying to make sure that they are considered more than just another Minecraft clone, basically. And a lot of what I've heard so far has been pretty good, but we just got a recent update that has me even more interested in the game now. In this, we took a detailed look at Hytale's AI system, which is being used to bring a lot of character and personality to the world. They're talking about some really cool stuff here. So basically, Hytale is going to be using this modular AI system that lets them create and modify complex behaviors for creatures in the game. They've spent the past few months building out behavior sets and adding new functionality, and the modular AI includes this utility system that allows NPCs to determine the value of given behaviors based on circumstances. I promise you, you're not being quizzed on this. Let me put this in layman's terms. This essentially helps NPCs make decisions which will allow for some more dynamic behavior and surprising interactions for the players. And they plan to use the utility system for AI combat as well, which will allow NPCs to make smarter choices when attacking players in terms of when they attack, how they attack, and the abilities that they use. So let me try to put this in layman's terms here, because we did get a sneak peek of how the modular AI works in action and what it's really going to mean to you, the player. So basically, they wanted to show how the AI is going to provide players with interesting ways to interact with the world. Now, in the very first clip that we got to look at, they show throwing a piece of food near a critter to draw its attention. Specifically, they showcase that if you toss cheese in the vicinity of a mouse, it's going to distract the mouse. Now, typically, when you walk up to a mouse, they will scurry away from the player, but because they are so attracted to the cheese, they will forget that the player's there for a moment long enough to consume the cheese, and then once the cheese is gone, they'll go about scurrying away again. And they gave a bit of an interesting fact about mice in Hytale, saying that they tend to gather around barrels and treasure chests and dungeons. So if you see a mouse, there might be a good chance there's some pretty good loot waiting around the corner, and you could again use that cheese to distract them long enough to get close enough to follow them wherever that loot is going to be. But it's not all just mice and cheese. These kind of interactions are going to apply to the more dangerous creatures in Hytale, including the fenstalkers. Now, typically, fenstalkers, when they see a player, they will attack them immediately. However, if you toss a fish next to one, it's actually going to reduce the view radius of the fenstalker to half of what it typically is, which would let you sneak up to or sneak around them to avoid combat. They also said that at night, fenstalkers will tend to be more aggressive. However, they're also afraid of fire. So if you're walking through a swamp at night and there's some fenstalkers nearby and you pull out a torch, it's going to actually cause the fenstalkers to cower in place, which will again prevent them from attacking you. So there's all sorts of different interactions that are going to take place with the creatures within the world of Hytale. Now, they say that these behaviors are also based off of separate triggers, so that modular AI system will be used to determine the time of day, which will determine the fenstalker's aggression level, but then it will also initiate the cower behavior when they come close to a bright light source like a torch. And the combination of these things are used to kind of flesh out the personality of these creatures in this world. And there are also behaviors for the creatures that aren't dependent on the players. For example, fenstalkers are very protective of their friends, especially the frogs. The modular AI system lets them establish this kind of relationship between different types of creatures, whether it's a predator, a prey, whether they're territorial rivals or they're friends. Like if a fenstalker sees a frog in trouble, it's actually going to rush over to try to defend it. So it's some pretty interesting stuff. I think it's really easy to kind of glaze over this and say, oh, you know, what's the big deal? You throw a piece of cheese to a mouse, or you throw a fish to a fenstalker, or you pull out a torch. I feel like in a lot of games, there are just these worlds that are inhabited by creatures, and it's either, is it a passive creature, a friendly creature, or an aggressive creature? And if it's aggressive, it'll attack you. If it's passive, it won't do anything. If it's friendly, maybe you can interact with it or whatever. But to have these different levels and layers of interactions and things things that they like and things that they dislike and things that they're scared of or things that make them angry and more aggressive, like the fence stalkers at night. It makes everything so much more interesting, and I think it can really turn the world of Hytale, or any game that this kind of system is used in, into feeling much more alive and rich and fleshed out, and again, kind of building the personality of the creatures that are in the world. It's some really, really cool stuff. We also got a little bit of a clip of this creature that's unique to Zone 2, the desert region in Hytale. It's called the unassuming cacti, and basically it's a creature that will sneak up on players when they're not looking directly at them. I know this type of gimmick has been done before, but nevertheless, I think it's a pretty cool gimmick. So some really interesting stuff with the their dive into the modular AI system that they're using. The blog post did show us a little bit more that I want to touch on here as well, though. We got some screenshots of a region they're calling the Scorched Ruins. They say that the world building team has been working on brand new biomes, prefabs, and world gen rules these past couple of months, and new environments as well for part of the adventure mode, which they haven't talked too much about so far. Now, they didn't want to spoil anything, but they did want to give us a sneak peek, so we got to take a look at these Scorched Ruins, which is basically this desolate, abandoned human area. And then they also welcomed a couple new members to the Hypixel team. First is being Timothy Ted Lestradet. I think I'm saying that right. He joined as a concept artist and 3D modeler. Now, they say that part of his application was to mock up some designs for the game. They wanted to reiterate that wasn't necessarily coming to the game, but wanted to give us an idea of what this new member could bring to the team. And they also showed off some work he has done for this Chorok weaponry that's in the game. And then also we've got Erica's Greater Siopes. I'm very bad with names, I apologize. Now, he previously worked on the Hypixel Minecraft server as a builder, and he's going to be making new prefabs and points of interest for Hytale. And then they shared this private project that he was working on to get familiar with Hytale's engine and the building tools. And it's this really cool looking, dark, ominous castle. And then finally, I wanted to point you to a second blog post. I'm not going to go through this bit by bit, but it's basically just a bunch of fan art. I've been seeing this stuff pop up on like social media and Reddit over the past couple of months, and they just wanted to highlight some of the stuff that they liked the most. There's some really, really cool looking things out here. I always think it's so interesting too to get people so dedicated and interested in a game to make fan art for it before anyone's even played it, or it just, you know, people are excited about the game, and I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. And of course, as always, I hope that they end up delivering and that Hytale ends up living up to, I guess, a lot of the hype that is surrounding this game already, that already seems to have established a pretty strong fan base. So we'll see what happens. Again, the more I learn about Hytale, the more interested I become. It keeps sounding cooler and cooler. I love the idea that they're not just trying to make a sequel to Minecraft or Minecraft 2. They really want to set themselves apart. I dove into a lot of that in the last video on this game, but I think in particular, there's two things that really draw me to this. First would be their emphasis on this RPG focus. The game's gonna have tons of quests and bosses in the world and different area objectives when you walk into locations, and then with the prefab areas building out to like this dynamically generated locations and adventure spots. And then the second big thing I would say would be how they're talking about the combat system. Sounds really interesting. Like it really seems like they're trying to add some depth to the combat. They're gonna have all these different weapons that have their own different attack styles and attack patterns, and then there's going to be blocking and dodging. They specifically say they want combat to be about more than just swinging a sword, so they're really going to try to add layers to the system to make it something that's like interesting to engage in. And then on top of all of that, everything that was talked about in this recent March blog post, this modular AI that they're going to have in the game, that I don't think I can state it enough. It's going to bring so much more depth to the world when you have these creatures that aren't just either passive or aggressive. To have creatures in this world that have their own like personalities, things that they like and they dislike, things that they're scared of or things that they're attracted to, I think it really has a potential to make for an interesting gameplay experience, and again, really kind of just flesh out the world. So that's basically it, a synopsis of the most recent update on Hytale. I'm really liking what I see so far. I'm going to continue to keep my eye on this game. I really try to be careful to not get too overexcited about games and not like assume that it's going to be the best thing in the world, but at the same time, I hope for it. I want it to be good. I hope they end up delivering. And from what I'm seeing so far, it sounds pretty darn interesting. So I will continue to keep an eye on Hytale, and I'll keep you guys updated whenever we get a fresh batch of new information. But that pretty much does it for today. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed this video, and stay safe out there. I know things are pretty crazy right now in the world. My life hasn't changed day to day too much. Fortunately, I haven't had anyone who's been affected. I myself am not sick. No one in my family's sick. But you know, we're in quarantine. We're on lockdown. I'm still sitting in my room making videos, so not too much has changed from my daily life, but it's crazy times. It's pretty unprecedented, and I hope you guys are taking care of yourself. Hope you're doing well. Stay safe out there, and I'll see you in the next one, all right? Take it easy.